everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adventures with Andy. Today, we're going to double dip some yarn. And by that I mean we're going to dip dye it first in one color, then we're going to turn the skein 90 degrees and dip dye it a second time in a second color. The first color that we're going to use is Wilton's Violet. Yes, I got some more and I got a big jar this time. And I don't know what the second color is going to be yet. It's either going to be a little bit I have left of the Wilton's Icing Gel Royal Blue, or possibly some No Taste Red, or maybe even some Wilton's Icing Gel Black. We'll decide which color we want to use for our second color after we see how things look from dip dyeing in the purple. The yarn that we're using today is Knit Picks Gloss Fingering, which is 70% merino wool and 30% silk. It's 100 grams and 440 yards. Now, as far as I know, this is not a superwash wool. It doesn't say it on the label. This is the first time that I've dyed the gloss fingering, though. And the reason that it matters about whether it's superwash or not is because that's going to affect how the yarn takes up the dye. So we may or may not see breaking. I don't know. We also have a yarn mop. This is our yarn mop from over dyeing the red cake of Barocco yarn. You might notice there's already some purple on it. That it's not from over dyeing the cake yarn. That is from when I mixed up the Wilton's Violet Icing Gel dye, stirred it up in some warm water, put this plastic lid on my mason jar, made sure it was tight, and thought, well, it mixed up pretty good since it's a new container of the icing gel. It was pretty liquid. I'll just shake it to make sure that it's all mixed up really good. Pro tip, don't do that. Dye water everywhere. It was purple all over the table, purple all over everything. Yarn mop's already been used to clean that up. Use this after that. Okay, our gloss fingering has been soaking in a vinegar tap water solution. I actually put it in yesterday afternoon, but we've entered the brief window of cold weather we will probably have here in North Carolina. It's December now, so it's a little chilly out here in the garage. And honestly, by about 6, 7 o'clock, it was too cold for this Southern girl to come out here. I didn't want to, so I just let it sit overnight. You may hear a little humming noise in the background. I got a space heater. It's what's the temperature, Chad?
I think it's like 42.
It's like 42 degrees today, which to me, you know, my hands are freezing. I'm a Southern girl. I don't like it too hot, though.
I stand corrected.
Oh, Chad's being corrected.
It is 52.
Oh, it's 52. I still think it's pretty. It's 52 degrees today. That's a little chilly for me. So I got a space heater going out here in the garage. The water in the crock pot, I've had it on high for a while I was mixing up the dye just to get it warmed up because it was ice cold. Luckily, it was not frozen. It was not a block of ice. The yarn has been soaking in a vinegar water solution since yesterday afternoon. And now we're ready to start dyeing it. But I'm going to wring out as much of the excess water as I can. And try not to get too much dye on it. I've got dye all over my fingers. We're using 1/8 of a teaspoon of the Wilton's Icing Gel Violet today, which is about half as much as I would normally use for a 100 gram skein of yarn. But the reason we're doing that is we don't want to dye the whole skein this time. We really only want to go up half to 3/4 of the way at the most on this. So we still have some undyed portion to cover when we turn it and do the second dip dyeing. Go ahead and, are you ready? Chad's on yarn mop duty. He's starting to put it in the mason jar. I think the yarn mop's winning. Is the yarn mop winning?
Nope.
No? You've got it encased?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, here we go. Oh, we're getting breaking. You see that blue? Okay, we might end up dyeing the whole skein at this point. We definitely got breaking, so I'm pretty excited about that. I think we're probably going to end up with just a classic broken Wilton's Violet for this first dip dye. And I am not mad about that, because I've never been able to break Wilton's Violet. So, well, other than when we did the calculator option.
But that didn't go the way you expected.
No, it did not.
It wasn't to this degree.
No. Yeah, we're down to just blue now, so that's cool. But that's the thing about adventures and yarn dyeing and art in general, is you always have the prerogative to just change your plan midway through and do something different if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and just put the rest of this in here. Put the lid on the crock pot. And we're going to let this just sit here and steep until the dye bath is clear. Alright, so our dye bath is pretty close to exhausted. We've still got just a faint amount of blue in there, but it's so light at this point, I'm not going to worry about that. So we're going to go ahead and scoop this out. Set that to the side for the moment. And I decided to go with the Wilton's Icing Black because that broke into such a nice, pretty, broken violet. I didn't want to put any more red or blue in it. So I thought we'd try with the black and just see how that deepens those colors, what it does with them. I used theoretically about a 1/16 of a teaspoon. I don't have a 1/16 of a teaspoon measuring spoon. So I took my 1/4 teaspoon measuring spoon and did a half of that. So approximately a 1/16 of a teaspoon, because I don't want to do like we did last time and end up dyeing the whole skein with it. So put that in there. I'm going to go ahead and stir it up a little more with my little mini whisk, because my black Wilton's icing gel is really, really dry. I mean, it's like a putty or a paste. I mean, it's really, really dry. That's fine. It still works. All right, we're going to hope that that is well mixed. Okay, so now for this dip dyeing, we don't want to just dip dye it again the same as we did before. We want to turn this 90 degrees. So we're dip dyeing only, from what was the midway point. So we're just going to take this, it's about halfway. So now the blue that had been the top and the darker of the purple that had been the bottom are in the middle. And we're going to dip dye with this as what goes in first now. And we're just going to do this the exact same way we did before. Swish it around so that the strands in the inside can hopefully get some of the color as well. And you can see that the part that was in that at the very top that was still pretty much white, it's now turning into a gray. Because of course, Wilton's black icing gel, it's not going to dye black the first time. I have gotten black from it, true black. If you haven't seen that video, I will try to remember to add a link to it. But it took, I think, like 3 days of low vinegar. It was low heat, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Low and slow, basically. It took like 3 days of very, very patient dyeing to get true black. So we're not going to get a true black with this, and that's fine. We just want to see what it's going to do with this. We can see what our dye bath looks like. And yes, the Wilton's black does break. because of course it's not a true black, because it's food coloring. Get a little bit lighter, and then we'll go ahead and put the rest of this in. I'm going to have to come back and dye a skein just breaking the black sometime.
See what you end up with?
Yeah.
You've mastered the technique.
Oh, I'm so far from having mastered the technique. But now that I have successfully broken a dye color once. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just put the rest of this in here, and that's what color we're down to. It's a fairly light dye bath. It looks lighter on camera than it is in real life, but it's still really faint. So we're just going to let this sit in the crock pot until the dye bath completely exhausts. If it doesn't want to thoroughly exhaust it, so we will toss the yarn mop in. I like to do that anyway when I'm setting yarn, just to get any loose dye sucked up, so I don't have to worry about excessive bleeding when I'm washing it. All right, so this has been sitting out here on high in the crock pot for about an hour now. Now we're just going boiling because it's very cold here in the garage, but the water is definitely steamy warm. You can see the dye bath is almost completely exhausted. We've got a little bit of faint blue in there. So, and this is what our yarn's looking like so far. I mean, it's deepened up that light blue so nicely, and the purple too. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead add in our yarn mop to help catch some of that remaining dye that's in the dye bath. And any excess dye that might be just, not actually in the skein yet. Gonna put the cover back on, unplug the crock pot, and we're just gonna let it sit overnight and cool down. And then tomorrow I can wash it, hang it up to dry. And here's our finished yarn. This turned out beautiful. First I have to say, I love the little subtle shimmer that we get from the silk content in this gloss yarn. I don't know if it's picking up really good on camera, but in person it's just got such nice, pretty sheen to it. And the way that Wilton's Violet broke. I mean, first of all, I'm just still excited and thrilled that I was finally able to
break Wilton's violet through dip dyeing. I honestly didn't expect that, and that's made my day that I was able to do that. But then doing the double dip of it with that, just a little bit of the black dye, it gave it such a nice subtle coloring. I mean, I love the blue to purple with a little bit of pink gradation of just regular Broken Wilton's violet, but this, the way that the blues get this nice gray tone to them, it reminds me of that time at night where it's just starting to go to dark outside. You've got that little bit of purple, that dusk hour, and I really like how this turned out. But Andy, you say, how does it look when you work it up? I'm glad you asked, because here is our swatch. This is not actually a self-stripe. It looks like it's a self-striping colorway, but it's not. If you look really closely, you can see that the stripes don't go all the way across. So depending on the stitch count, you'd end up with pooling instead. I just happened to luck out with this. This is just our standard 30 by 30 swatch that we do for a full size skein of yarn. And I knit this up on US 5s, and it just happened to work out to be sort of a stripe. If I had chosen different needles, if I'd done a different number of stitches, then it might not have. But it looks really cool, and it's got me kind of wanting to try dyeing a self-striping yarn now, because that looks really cool. But yeah, it works up so pretty. And one thing that I find really interesting about it is that depending on the lighting and the background, the blue looks more gray than blue. I mean, this background I'm using right now today is a gray background instead of white. I don't actually have a white background because a certain foster cat decided she wanted to use the canvas that I've been using as my white background as a bed, and now there's little divots from where she was laying, so it doesn't work quite as well. I don't have anything else white, but yeah, I got a piece of white paper, and you can see that on the white paper it looks more blue, but then you put it on the gray and it looks more of a gray, and it's just optics, and it's just so cool the way it does that. I'm easily fascinated by things, y'all know that. And of course we can't forget our yarn mop, which looks really pretty cool right now, but there's still a whole lot of area on here that doesn't have any color. We've got some sections that have no color whatsoever, some that are just a really, really pale blue. So I think this has at least one more round as a yarn mop in it. So I'm not knitting up a swatch with it yet, and it's just going to hang out until the next time I dye some yarn and need a yarn mop. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed dyeing this yarn with me for our little double dipping yarn dye adventure. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss anything. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you on our next adventure. Bye!